Hey everyone, ShinNefzen here, your humble host as always, welcoming you to week 1719 of the Let's Play Olympics 2, The Confusing Return to Numbers. Forgive me, first of all, I'm fighting a cold, so hopefully I'm halfway understandable, but of course somebody had to do it. The granddaddy of movie games, the granddaddy of bad movie games. It was the first, it was the worst, and will therefore always be the best. Oh, it's E.T. for the Atari 2600, a game which almost single-handedly derailed an entire company, not to mention almost single-handedly caused the video game crash in 1983, with a little help from the terrible Pac-Man port, but it's generally seen as one of the primary causes. And before I get into the gameplay, let's talk about that a little bit. It is, now some people have heard the rumor that there's, millions of copies of E.T. buried somewhere in the Nevada desert. Well, it's true, more or less. It's actually a landfill, but it's in Alamogordo, which is in New Mexico, I think. But yeah, there are actual millions of copies sitting in a landfill. It's a true story. Long story short, obviously E.T., everyone's probably seen the movie, well-respected movie, one of Steven Spielberg's biggest achievements. So of course they wanted to make a game for it in time for the holidays. The problem is, one, if you don't know, most Atari games are generally made by one programmer, sometimes two, but usually one. And they usually have several months to make them. Now, Howard Scott Warshaw took on the task of making E.T., and he is the genius behind the legendary Yar's Revenge, which is a very simple game, but he took 6 months to program it. He also made the Raiders of the Lost Ark game I almost said Lego Indiana Jones for some reason, but for Indiana Jones he made the Raiders of the Lost Ark game for the Atari 2600 as well. He took 5 months to program that game. So the time came to make E.T. Atari approached him, they said, "You're our guy, we want you to make this game, it's going to be huge for us, the movie's amazing." And by the time they finished the negotiations, hammering out the contracts with Spielberg, the studios, the licensing, Warshaw had 5 weeks to program the game. Not months, weeks. He normally would take far longer than that to make a game, but he was up to the challenge, he said. He said, I was excited, I was looking forward to it. So, he bangs out this atrocious garbage in 5 weeks, and I'll segue that into what is the point of this game. Well, I'm E.T. I'm falling down a whole bunch of pits in case you can't tell. Most of the time it's not intentional because the basic hit detection of this game is completely atrocious. You'll see me just walking perfectly normally along solid ground, and all of a sudden I'm in a pit. And when I'm nowhere near a pit, that's how terrible the hit detection is. But long story short, the point, I'm E.T., I need to phone home. So I need to gather 3 pieces of an interplanetary phone, basically. Now those 3 pieces are scattered completely at random among all these holes that I'm just fumbling around in. So, I need to get 3 pieces of the phone. And you see that very dwindling number at the bottom of the screen. That's my energy bar. Every time I basically perform, hey, a piece of a phone. Anytime I perform any action, whether it's walking, running, falling down, moving around, hey, it's Elliot. It uses up energy. Energy bar hits 0. Elliot will come and revive me with a little bit of life. But after a few times, it's you only get it a few times, and it's a game over pretty much. So after you collect all 3 pieces of this interplanetary phone, you need to find a safe screen where neither the scientist or the FBI agent is on, and you can make the phone call to wherever E.T.'s home is. And then you got to make it back to the home screen, which is that one that's just multiple shades of green with no pits or anything. And the spaceship will be waiting for you, and you can dust off and live happily ever after. Now, there's two guys chasing me, like I said. The scientist in the lab coat there, you can fight him and lose energy while he's dragging you away. It's pointless. You might as well just let him grab you. You can't get away from him as far as I'm aware. He will drag you to that building that you just saw. You know, once he drops you off, you're completely free to just leave. And, basically at no penalty. So, if the scientist grabs you, you might as well not fight him. You're just going to waste energy. So he takes you to a building. Basically, it's supposed to be a laboratory, and you can leave and continue on your merry business. Guy in the brown coat is an FBI agent. If he touches you and your inventory is empty, well, then nothing happens. But otherwise, he steals one piece of the phone each time he touches you, and it places it in another random hole on the map. So, as many Atari games were back in the day, your job is more or less left to the whim of fate. I've seen this game not be completed at all, as I'm obviously doing an excellent job of demonstrating here. I've seen this game completed in 30 seconds. You know, I mean, you got a random number generator. The pieces of the phone can all be right next to each other. I've seen it happen before. And here we have something just to annoy us. It's a flower. When you first encounter it, it's a seedling that you can make grow. Don't know why. Don't know what the point of it is. That other number you might have noticed, that 5 right there. There are little black speck-looking things on the floor, or ground. And this is my first game over. I don't know what this insinuates, but there are little brownish black specks on the ground. Yeah, this is the home screen I need to get back to once I make the call. Like right there. That is a Reese's Pieces. As we all know, E.T. has a affinity for Reese's Pieces, and supposedly there's a way to make them restore energy, and if you collect 9, you can call Elliot, and he'll give you a piece of the phone. It must be some strange, complex Atari control, because I've gotten the 9 before, and I couldn't figure out how to call him. But I'm just going to chalk that up to bad programming again. And you'll probably notice that thing at the top of the screen in the purple band. Looks like it's giving me directions, right? Yeah, completely worthless. Completely worthless. Don't even bother trying to look at it, because it's not helpful. I mean, and now it's telling me to get out of the well. Well, thanks. That's actually what these are supposed to be. They're supposed to be wells. There's a piece of the phone. Each piece I pick up fills in part of that graphic up on the purple band. It basically looks like a giant E when it's completed. But the biggest problem facing this game are the atrocious controls. You'll see me falling down the same pit multiple times. It's not because I'm stupid. It's not because I don't know how the game works. It's because that is how the game works. I mean, it'll think you're trying to go down the hole. If it pops you out in a bad spot, it can drop you down the same hole 3 or 4 times. The way to get out of the pit, like you can see, is, you know, E.T. elongates his neck and you can float around. But the problem is, he only does it for about a second after you get out of the well. So if he's still over the well when he decides to lower his neck, you're going to fall back down. If there's a way to elongate his neck outside of the well to keep him going, I haven't found it, because I tried. And when you're walking around on the ground, you can press the button that'll normally elongate your neck, and you'll actually run, and which sounds useful, but it burns energy at twice the speed, and it doesn't stop the bad guy from pursuing you. I'm just lucky here because the idiot's stuck between 2 wells, so I can do what I want for a little bit. But I'm still having a hell of a time just exiting the screen. Right there. I was nowhere near the stupid hole, but I fell down it a couple times anyway. I need a drink. Being sick sucks. Especially when you have to talk for 15 minutes. But this is now, okay, now, Now, I've pretty much explained the horribleness of this game. Although for Atari graphics, it doesn't look terrible, but... Okay, 5 weeks goes by. Howard Scott Warshaw, the badass Atari programmer, bam, they all get together, they meet with Steven Spielberg. And he basically shows him a rough prototype of the game. He's not quite done with it yet, he shows him a rough prototype. This is still a couple weeks left to go. Spielberg looks at it, he's like, I'm not really that impressed, I gotta tell you. I'm envisioning something more like Pac-Man, something on a single screen, something like that, where you have to whatever, get collectibles, do something. That's how he saw it. He saw it as like a Pac-Man style game that took place on a single screen, maybe in a maze, whatever. And after the meeting, Atari basically told Warshaw, it's your project, well, whatever, do whatever's best. You're the programmer. So Howard Scott Warshaw basically completely dismisses Spielberg's idea. And he's been on record in hindsight as saying that probably wasn't the best of ideas. He probably should have took his words to heart a bit more. But he went ahead with his idea, which was what we ended up with. And on paper, it's not a bad idea. It really isn't. It makes sense. I mean, the goal of the movie, E.T. wanted to phone home. You gotta collect pieces of a phone so you can get out. Fairly simple, but we're talking 1983, we're talking Atari 2600. It's not that bad. But you see this mess. These multiple times where I keep falling down the hole, it's not on purpose. I'm not even doing it to show off. It's just the game doing it. And here I have the 9 Reeses, and I'm like, how do I call Elliot? I think if you keep an eye on the icons at the top, like right there, it showed like E.T. with a little speaking icon. I think that might have to be displayed before I can do it. I'm not sure. But even if it did work, it'd just show up and steal it or something anyway. But so long story short, Warshaw publishes the game as is, and you pretty much know the rest. It's a legendary flop. It sold. It was actually in the top 4 selling games for that holiday, of course, because there was a huge anticipation around it. And back then, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't even gaming magazines to give reviews of games, so, people went out and bought the game in droves. Stores sold out. It was a very popular game. And people saw how absolutely atrocious it was and started returning it in record numbers. And the same thing ended up happening with the Pac-Man game for Atari 2600 at the time, which was an atrociously terrible port, done also in 4 weeks, I think. And I'm not going to get into it because I'm running out of time, but if you're curious about the differences between good Pac-Man and the Atari 2600 version, go look it up. It's an abomination, long story short. So anyway, these games create record losses. Atari hemorrhages money, and that's where we are now. They'd had no way to move the copies. The sales just completely dropped. People lost faith in their product. They stopped buying Atari products. They didn't even really go to their competitors in Intellivision or Coleco, really. They kind of just, people were like, what is this crap? And, started getting rid of their systems, just started looking at entertainment elsewhere. And that's how I got the video game crash in 1983, and it wasn't me until 1985 when Nintendo saved us all. For getting their missteps in recent years, we can at least thank them for that. Yes, E.T. for the Atari 2600. I saw we had Raiders of the Lost Ark for the 2600 done as well. I'm very pleased to actually see that. It's that game's good when you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, the game's impossible to beat. Random bombs you have to throw with absolutely no indication of you're supposed to use them or where you're supposed to use them, but they say it was a high-concept game that was ultimately done well when you think about it, unlike this, which was a low-concept game that ultimately failed horribly. And it's hard to blame the programmer for it, he wasn't given any time. At the end of the day, he just didn't have the time. You could have the best intentions in the world, but at the end of the day, if you just don't have the time to work on it, you don't have a staff. This was one guy making one guy do this game in 5 weeks. It was just begging for disaster, but it was an experiment at the time, and well, time showed us the results of that. Anyway, thanks for putting up with my sick and drunken ramblings. I'll see you in the next week. Hopefully, for you that never saw this game in action, you understand how truly atrocious it is. It was the first movie game, really. I mean, you had Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm actually not yeah, this was after Raiders of the Lost Ark. So yeah, one of the first couple movie games, and the first truly terrible one. Truly setting the standard for horrible video games. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next week. Hopefully, my voice sounds a little bit better by then, but thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.